Hey everybody, thanks again for joining us. We are excited to be on episode 6 now of CellSmart TV. This has been a really fun opportunity and hopefully you guys have gained some value from some of the things that we've been doing and the people that we've been talking to. This has kind of been our opportunity to get a chance to sit down with some of the coolest business professionals and entrepreneurs in the industry that are helping make the world turn and kind of finding out some of the technology that's helping them do that. And today I'm really excited to have our guest here with us. This is Tia, and she is a graphic designer and content creator.
Yep.
But I'll let her take some time and just introduce herself to you and tell you more about what she does and how awesome she really is.
Alright. Hi, my name is Tia, and like you said, I am a content creator and graphic designer. Graphic design tends to be the most popular thing that I do, and basically I help small businesses tell their stories online through social media posts or their logo, business cards, flyers, what have you, printed and digital material.
Right on.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that line of work?
Oh gosh, so I was the kid that had a million ideas. I wanted to start every business known to man. I wanted to do the dog walking, the babysitting, I wanted to do the dog sitting, I wanted to have a lemonade stand, I wanted to sell cookies and cookie dough, I had all the ideas.
Right.
The funny thing is, my favorite part of doing all of this was doing the little flyers and the business cards for my thing, and I didn't know that was actually a job. I thought that was just something you do. Yeah, that's just part of the course. And then I graduated high school, and then I learned that was actually a thing called graphic design.
Right.
And so I said, all right. So I looked into it. I ended up going to school for it. Got all through the most of my degree until, unfortunately, I had a surprise baby come along and had to drop out. But I had all my core classes done for graphic design. So I knew the programming inside and out. I knew what to do, whatnot, and then unfortunately the school I went to disbanded the program that I was in. So I've kind of been SOL on that, but as far as everything else goes, yeah, it was a thing I started
The
doing.
knowledge didn't go away.
The knowledge is there, the knowledge is established, and I've been doing that pretty solidly since about 2012 or so, something like that, yeah.
So you've had some time under your belt doing it.
Yeah, I've been doing it well. It's been an in and out kind of process. I was really gung-ho, like freelancing for a while, and then I went and got adult jobs and corporate jobs, which didn't end up being nearly as satisfying as working for myself was. So when I was let go by my previous employer, I just kind of took it as a sign that it was time to wing it myself again. So
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. That's awesome. So you've been doing this now, you said, since 2012, and it's something you've always wanted to do and really had a passion for. Tell us a little bit more about what it is that you love most every day about your job and what you do.
Jeez, what do I love most? I actually love helping small businesses. That's probably my favorite thing ever. I love, especially during that startup phase when they're just now figuring out what they're wanting to do and they don't have the words to put it into visuals.
Right.
And I love being able to translate into a picture, especially with logos. I also really love rebuilding a logo. So say they did something, when they very, very first started out, and then now with all the better technology, especially with HD being a big thing, LCD screens, everything like that, their logos aren't looking as crisp as they could.
Sure.
And I love being able to fix that and make it look print ready on any platform. Or if they need to have something blown up to a larger size so they can get it printed on, a large banner or something like that. I love being able to fix it for them so that it's usable with today's current technologies.
Right. So whether it's print or digital or social media, I know there's a bunch of different size images
requirements.
And requirements for those images, I should say. So that's really cool. Let me ask this: what do you find most challenging day to day in the career you've got going on?
I think it's communication, and not so much it's because they don't have the words. They don't understand how to take what's in their head and articulate it, or some people are just in general bad at talking to you at all.
Well, sure, yeah.
So that tends up being a challenge because I'm one of those people where I like to know as much information up front as humanly possible. And I know that there's a lot of gaps in that, but having absolutely no feedback on what I'm supposed to do, or if I talk to a business and then they give me nothing back, it makes it really difficult to do my job.
Sure.
Especially when you're working with things with visuals or timelines. Like if I'm helping someone with a social media campaign and they want it to run from, beginning of October into mid-November. okay, I need to have all the information from you so I can make the imagery. And if you don't give me the information I need by the deadline, I can't make your deadline. So it's a two-way street there.
Yeah,
And so a lot of times I feel like the ball gets dropped on the other end. It's like, I'm sitting here waiting, and I can only do so much without your approval. So that's probably the hard part, is the communication sometimes between client and...
Do you find that there's maybe you touched on this a second ago, but do you find that there's sometimes like a language barrier? You get a lot of people saying, can you do the thingamajig with the whatchamacallit? And, you know.
There's a bit of a... I'm pretty good at not using like the industry terms. I'm really good at not using that. I try not to. Or I make an effort to try and teach them what the words are so they know.
Right.
So that way when they're asking for things, we can clearly separate them, you know, so they understand the difference between like a vector file versus like a Photoshop file, how they're different, or a raster file, correction. I try to explain them and educate them. That's, I consider an also a part, because they may not work with me forever.
Sure.
You know, I am totally, and I don't get jealous or upset about it. If someone decides to, you know, they like something that I did, but it wasn't like, it was bare bones good, but they wanted something else added to it, and they move on to a different designer, that's fine, but they're still using the bare bones. I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with it, especially if they're growing and they want something a little bit more refined or whatnot, or you know, someone who fits their vision better. I'm totally good with that.
Yeah.
But so that way they can, whoever they communicate with next, they're getting their point across.
They know what they're looking for.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
It's kind of like if you were to decorate your house, so to speak, with art in your house. You don't get like all of the Rembrandts and put them in your house.
Yeah.
You have a Rembrandt in one room and a Picasso in the other. Or something like
you have
that,
a good variety in there, but I really like educating people. The other thing is that I think a lot of them just don't really know what they want, and the ability to actually just sit down and think it through. They always think they're too busy to do that.
Right.
It really, a 10-minute conversation would go a long way. And a lot of them just feel like they're too busy to actually sit down and have the conversation. But I mean, you would save yourself a lot more time and heartache in the long run by just having the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that's true like across any industry, any relationship. Just take the 10 minutes, have the conversation. You'll save yourself a ton of heartache in the long run.
That's 100% true. Communication, I feel like, solves 90% of the world's problems.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about, I mean, you talk a lot about technology, and obviously being a graphic designer, I can only imagine the different things that you're involved with. Do us a favor and just tell us a little bit about what kind of technology you find yourself using every day, most commonly.
Most commonly. So I use my desktop Mac the most. It is my baby. It was a gift from my parents. It makes me so happy. I had a Mac laptop previously, and I love that thing, don't get me wrong. I seriously used it to death. But I realized that some of the things I wanted to do and the file sizes I was looking at for some of the businesses were going to be too much for my little laptop to handle. So I kind of asked, well, okay, for my birthday/Christmas gift, I would like to have a Mac desktop.
There you go.
So that was the deal that was made. So I have one that I use that almost daily. There's a few other things technologically that I use. I do have a mini iPad, and I love that thing. I also have my iPhone that I rely on. My dream piece of technology right now is an iPad Pro with the pen, because I can see how, like in my head, how much more useful that will be, and take my ability to communicate and have things in front of clients in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most prominent one is my desktop. Software wise would be the Adobe Creative Suite, Creative Cloud. It is a monthly subscription service. But having it on the cloud makes a world of difference. Because
How do you find that it has helped you being in the cloud versus, say, saved to the hard drive? Just so our guests.
Yeah. Okay. So, beforehand, the way that Adobe would license out their programs, you could only use it on one computer, or they would license you out to a minimum number, like 2-3 computers you can only use, and the information was saved only on that computer. So if I had to access it, like if I was going to have a client meeting, I would have to reload it on whatever it is I wanted, or print out a sheet and then show it to the customer and not have access to it.
Right.
Having it in the cloud means I have access to it on my iPad, I have it access on my iPhone, on my computer, on my laptop if I have it hooked up. I have access to it literally anywhere there's an internet connection, which makes things a lot easier. It also makes it easier as far as quick edits need to go, because there's some of the programs that are interchangeable. There's even Adobe Creative Cloud apps I can get for my phone. So that means I have access to those same files from my phone that I do that are on my computer because they're in the cloud. So it makes making those quick edits a lot easier.
Just ease of use and ease of access.
Ease of access, yeah.
Awesome. So can you tell us maybe about a specific time where the use of this technology has helped either improve that specific transaction or the situation that could have been otherwise? Does that make sense how I'm asking?
Yeah, no, I actually have a perfect example. I was actually doing a project with Mike DeClamore. We know him through our networking group. He had asked me if I could help him do some work because he was overloaded with orders and he needed an image converted into a file for his machines to read, his engravers to read. And I was able to use the apps on my phone to edit it to a way that I could transfer it to my computer and do the fine detail work. And without that ability, I would have been spending an unbelievable amount of hours trying to do this just on one device or the other. And to be able to seamlessly transfer from one to the other made it that much, because he had sent them to me on my phone.
Right. And
being able to also just airdrop things straight from my phone to my computer, it saved, I don't even know how many minutes that alone saved me, instead of having to wait for something to upload or download it, having to log in through my email and then download it. Just being able to go, whoop, whoop, yep, there you go.
The seamless integration.
The seamless integration.
It's
Gotta
a
love
beautiful
it.
thing. So again, being in it since 2012, and I think we all kind of know and understand like the rapid advancement that we've experienced just in our generation of technology, right?
Yeah.
Can you help to explain some of the evolution that you've experienced in your line of work of the technology and the way that it's worked? Again, you talked a little bit about like the Adobe suite and how it used to be licensed to maybe one or two computers and only on the hard drive, and now it's in the cloud. Tell us a little more about how you've seen that evolve and the changes that it's brought for you.
I've seen so much, especially when it comes to applications for your phone. Especially when it comes to like things that you, like I said, Adobe has apps for your phone now that you can do basic photo editing, you can do basic vector draws, you can create social media posts almost straight from scratch on your phone, and because it's in the cloud, I also have access to it on my computer. So if I realize that there's a small thing, because I don't have like the pen or a stylus in order to use it on my phone, that's fine enough to get the precision, I can transfer it to my computer and do the precision work there. And you didn't have that ability. I didn't even have, these apps weren't even available a couple years ago when I first got my very first iPhone. And so the way that they've advanced, I can see how much I get out of having one piece of technology versus, having to rely on one, multiple devices versus a singular device.
Right.
It makes things, it seems like a lot, but when you actually get the hang of it, it's second nature.
Right.
There's a little bit of a learning curve with everything, there's a learning curve with everything, but it's so much more intuitive than it used to be, and that probably be the other change that I've noticed is that the programs from when I very first started to now have become so much more intuitive. You don't even have to do a lot of thinking, and then with the access of other things like for technology like YouTube, I can learn anything that I don't know how to do with a quick tutorial.
The knowledge is so much more readily available.
Exactly, and it makes things easier, because because I'm not an expert by any means, and there are some things that I'll wonder now, how do I do this in this program with now that it's a new version?
Yeah.
And then the fact that I can hop on YouTube and learn all the things, and it's free access. It's not going to cost me anything, but it's going to end up making me money in the long run because I just learned a new skill. So
we always joke about it at our work. We call it YouTube University.
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, seriously, it feels like, and don't take this the wrong way, but it feels like nowadays, pretty much anything outside of specialty work, like being a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, you can literally learn the skills available on YouTube.
That's true.
And you can take advantage of those opportunities. Now, to be fair, not all of it is 100% accurate, right?
No, not all of it is 100%.
We always make the joke that they can't put anything on the internet. That's not true. Right?
True. It's very true.
But believe it or not, there's quite a bit of misinformation out there. So you do have to do a little bit of your own homework and research. But there's a ton of really good information that's accessible out there that I think
it helps a lot if you have the base knowledge there.
Mhm.
You have to have the base knowledge. Without that, and without having gone to school, I wouldn't have the base knowledge. You know,
Right.
I would be flying completely blind.
Right.
Which, granted, I've learned plenty of things being thrown to the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been a repetitive theme in my life.
Trial by fire. Yeah.
Trial by fire, thrown to the wolves. Yeah, it happens to me all the
It's
time.
the life of a business owner.
Exactly.
It's not just.
But it helps a lot that I already understand the basics, because some of the tutorials can be very jargon, can be very, you know, industry jargon, or they can be very, very quick, and they're expecting you to already know what's already there. So
Right.
if you're going in there and you don't already have that knowledge, you're going to be much more lost than someone who at least understands what some of the symbols mean
A little bit
along
of
the
that,
side.
like deer in the headlights look kind of thing.
So having the base knowledge will get you a lot farther when you're diving into tutorials, because that's an entire, you know, rabbit hole into itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's probably offshoots all kinds of different places in there too. So, so of the technology that you're using, like, how is it helping to make you better at what you do every day, day in and day out?
It makes me more efficient.
Mhm.
I think one of my favorite things was, and it's not just using graphic design, it's the programs in itself. There's other things that I use, like I use the Square app, and I use that for my invoicing. So the fact that I can do my invoicing from my phone anywhere I am, so that way I know when the job is done. If they've given the okay, I can say, all right, invoice is tucked to your inbox. It makes me more efficient because I'm not having to wait as long, and it makes things easier for me to track too, as far as finances go, because I have everything in one place.
Right.
I also end up relying a lot on e-commerce too, just because I have bought hardware like tablets and styluses and things like that. There's different kinds of tablets. There's not just the tablets that you guys work on.
Right.
There's drawing tablets that I use too, and so being able to purchase those e-commerce from anywhere, if I know something broke, like, or your dog chewed on it,
Yeah.
you can fix it and we get it replaced. So it ends up being a lot more, the technology nowadays ends up being a lot more useful than you give it credit, I think. You don't even, in ways that you may not necessarily think of right away, but yeah, e-commerce, Amazon is my best friend.
Yeah. Get stuff quick. Yeah.
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 So yeah, there's been a lot of things that
Sometimes we can take it for granted too. I mean,
Exactly.
It's amazing to know, like, just the stuff that we have nowadays. It's funny how many times a day I hear from a customer who says, I need my phone back super quick, you know, and then as we get the repair done, I'm checking them out and they're like, man, I don't know what we ever did without these things. Because it's like our whole lives go through it now, you know, and it's not just phones. I mean, you talk about it as a business professional.
Yeah.
You're on your phone, your tablet, and then you've got your computer, and you've got all these other different pieces of machinery, really, that you're using. And it's like, if you didn't have one of them, like, how would that affect you? You know what I mean?
Like, it's funny to me because as much as I need my phone, I don't need my phone. I'm one of those people where I have intentionally left my phone at home when I go places and whatnot, and I think it's a leftover from because I grew up before cell phones were a thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting forcing yourself to separate from it too at the same time. But it's a good idea to take breaks from your phone. It's a good idea to take breaks from your technology. But yeah, I do rely on it pretty heavily. I'm just like everybody else. I'm on Facebook and Instagram just as much as everybody else. I rely on it. It's how it's a new version of pulling your wallet out and showing the pictures of the kids. You know, it's you show that on Facebook, and it's a great way for me to keep in touch with family members still. You know, with not just with the kids, but with my work and.
Do you find that you use it a lot for your clients, like, to attract new business to you? Are you marketing through social media?
I do market through social media. A lot of it also works really well through networking events, in-person events, and a lot of times I notice there's a correlation between in-person and social media. But yeah, social media is something I rely on a lot for work. It's also something I just rely on for personal life because we do get so busy being business owners. It's hard to keep track of your friends and family and stuff like that outside of or off the platforms. So it's a great way to just communicate and keep in touch with people in general. So
yeah, 100%. So let me ask you this: if there's anything, what would it be that you would change about the technology that you're currently using to continue to further yourself and enhance your business?
Oh geez. I think the biggest thing for me would have to be, and it might already exist already, but a way to be more like I'm drawing in a sketchbook. just because there is something about drawing on paper versus drawing on the actual on a tablet or on a tablet that is different. Like the feel is different and the results are different. Like when you draw with a pencil, an actual pencil, you can get shading effects and whatnot that you can't get digitally. They get pretty close, but it's not quite the same as actually having the smudge or the smear. The same thing with like paint or any like actual like traditional mediums as far as that goes. So the way to if we could improve the technology so we could get closer to those, I think would be a massive leap forward as far as designers, because I mean, people forget when they hear graphic design, they automatically think about computers and like using a Mac desktop because that is industry standard.
Yeah.
But people forget that before computers existed, they did everything by hand.
By hand, yeah.
Everything, you know, so to be able to replicate some of those older techniques, when they were like, especially Art Deco and Art Nouveau are some of my favorite styles in history, and the way they would gild things and the way they would be able to get the curves and the shading and lines and whatnot with paint and the actual like traditional art mediums, I think being able to get closer to that, I think would bring a little bit of that old school, that little bit of that heart back to it, because we can be very disconnected from it because we're doing it on a digital platform.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell that someone spent a lot of time on it. And I think that would probably be the other way if there was a way to communicate that, by the way, I spent 6 hours doing this. And people forget that, think that it's just everything's a click of a mouse nowadays. And I think there's a bit of a disconnect for that. So I think if there was a way to bring a little bit of that heart back, that some of that labor back into it, I think it would be better not just for the designer but also for the clientele, because then they could appreciate the actual work that goes into it. I mean, sitting at a computer for 8 hours, people automatically think, oh, well, it's easy. And they're like, you don't understand how much, labor is actually involved in this. And I imagine that goes the same for your end of the business too. People don't actually understand how much goes into putting every little screw back in your phone.
If you've ever seen
It's time consuming.
Yeah.
And so I think that would probably is always my my goal is always I want people to understand the heart that goes into everything that I do and the work that everybody else does. Which is why I like helping small businesses, is because I like showing everybody the heart. I like telling their stories behind the business. So
that's really cool. Yeah, I think just to touch on a couple of things that you brought up there, I think right now the technology, as great as it is and as fast as it's advanced, I think even still as we speak right now, I can't see a way, at least within the foreseeable future, that that drawing like on a tablet with a stylus is ever going to look the same as with a pencil and paper, like you were talking about. However, that all being said, you brought up the iPad Pro and the pen, the pencil that comes with that. I own one, and I've been able to see, and I'm not artistically gifted in any way, shape, or form, but there are some cool things that can do. So if you're interested after we're done here, we can toy around with it. I can show you some stuff. But anyway, so I will say they're getting there, but I don't know, maybe this is just me and my lack of technological vision at this point. I think there's still something very much and very real to be said about some of the old school ways to do things. Again, I work in the technology business, so this may be like talking out of both sides of my neck here, but I do believe that technology is advancing, and there are some really cool things we can do. I mean, shoot, they're doing surgery with robots from other sides of the planet.
Right.
But I will say, as far as that goes, I think there is something to still be said for the element of creation in terms of artistic value and things like that. Yeah. I have a friend that does like wood etching. He actually did our skateboard. I don't know if you saw our video a while back, but we did a drawing, and he gave us a skateboard that was etched with our logo in it.
Oh, that's cool.
And so there was still some really cool artistic element to that that I don't think would have been there had he used some of the other pieces of technology that could have just done it and made it look like it was printed that way. Yeah. So and I think that's why that piece was so cool for me, and I think that's why the winner appreciated it so much, is because there's still an artistic value to be said. Yeah. Or there's still an artistic value to that. So I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why, aside from my graphic design work, I do have a handmade business where I hand make things, and because I still like that feeling, the tactile feeling of actually putting my hand on something and making it into something, you know, taking nothing and then turning it into something useful. And I'm still using my design understanding, because I am taking something and from an amorphous blob and turning it into something structural that exists, that is useful and pretty and that kind of stuff. So I'm still using my skills, it's just I'm applying them in a different way.
Sure.
So
busy young lady.
I like idle hands are the devil's plaything. And it was a good thing I was a busy child. I would have been in so much trouble, so much more trouble.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we've got to the point of this interview where, as much fun as we've been having, and I appreciate you being here and being a part of this. I really do have to ask the super hard-hitting journalistic question. Okay. Are you ready for it?
Yep.
Okay. Windows, iOS, or Android, and why?
Do I really have to answer? Because we've obviously heard me say that one word over and over and over again.
We have. So you've already kind of alluded to it.
Yes, I am iOS 199% of the time. That's not even a thing for me. I've been on the Mac bandwagon since 2009. Mm-hmm. That's when I started school. That's when I got my very first Mac laptop. And it literally changed my perspective on computers and the whole technology thing, because it was the first really intuitive platform I'd ever used. And it made me love technology. Like, I cannot underline this enough. It made me love technology. I had always used PC because PC is the easy accessible one. It's the affordable one. It's what everybody goes to. It's the one that's everybody uses for networking and whatnot. Yeah. My significant other is a hardcore PC Android guy. That is him. And I just have used Apple since 2009, and I can't not use it.
Can't pull away from it.
I can't get away from it. It's just, it makes me happy.
I found this, I will say, so we've asked this question obviously a few times now. I found this: if I have someone that I'm talking to who has an artistic element to what they're doing, Mac is the way that they go. If I have someone else who is more in what we would consider like the technology business, and I know that's a really broad range, because there's, and I'm not just talking about like cell phones, I'm talking about like, there's a lot of technology business, right? Then there's a more broad range of what they're using. It might be iOS, it might be Android, it might be Windows, it might be some combination of all three, but I've noticed more prevalent, and this may be just me overgeneralizing, so take this for whatever it's worth, but I've noticed that more artistic elemented businesses and professionals are utilizing the iOS platform.
I've found the same thing to be true. I have found the same thing to be true. Well, for graphic design and most anything CGI related, Mac is considered the industry standard, especially when you get into the computers that have the Retina display. This is where my tech geek kind of comes out a little bit.
No, bring it on. This is what we do, so bring it on.
So, especially with the advances in the Retina displays for the actual the laptops and the desktops, you get so much more vivid color, you get so much more visual information, and when you are, and people who are typically creative, getting into the science, biology nerd here, tend to have a full spectrum of color when it comes to their rods and cones in the back of their eye, and with the Retina displays you pick up on more of that, whereas people who don't have a full range, it becomes less important. I have the weird ability that I can match colors on site. Like, I don't have to like pull out a paint chip. I can actually match a color just by looking at it, and then I can go to a store and pick out the match for it, which is a great ability to have. Yeah, but
especially as a graphic designer, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's a great ability to have, but I realize that I end up frustrated when I use PC platforms because I can't get the colors right, because I don't feel like that they're giving me enough information, visual information. So with the advances in that, and plus obviously Mac is a lot harder to hack into. Which when
their security is pretty incredible.
Their security is incredible, and so when you're dealing with graphic design when you're dealing with sensitive information, because copyrighted logos, or sometimes I get more personal information, like they're wanting to plan a sale or some things like that. So I have that information locked in my email or whatever like that. I'm not worried about it getting broke into. It's a lot harder to get hacked or deal with viruses and stuff like that. So it ends up being a safeguard when I'm dealing with more sensitive information, or information that needs to be private for a specific amount of time.
Sure.
So there's a lot of the security, and then dealing with, like I said, the visual display, and then the fact that it is intuitive. It's a very intuitive platform for people who are creative. It's like I looked at it and went, I get it.
Right.
And not ever having to see the blue screen of death is appealing.
The ever loved blue screen of death.
Blue screen of death, yeah. So yeah, it's been a long-standing thing for me and my significant other. Actually, we have a running joke. We've had this joke since we met, as I'm a Mac and he's a PC.
Yeah.
So if you know that commercial, you know where that comes from. That's been a long-standing joke.
I remember those. Yep.
Yeah, it's been a long-standing joke between me and him, and we even said that was accurate because I'm the cool one, and he's got his glasses on all the time. Although he's cool in his own right, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
He's actually, it's misleading. He's a biker dude, but he's incredibly PC, Android. He's also Samsung nerded out. I bought him a smartwatch for his birthday.
Yeah. It's crazy to see how fast those wearables are coming around.
That's insane.
But they're pretty fun. We've had a few ourselves.
Yeah.
But you talk about, you and your significant other being kind of the yin and yang of each other. My wife and I use an iPhone for my phone, and she's a diehard Android. So we kind of yin and yang ourselves, and it's always interesting. And then we talk about sports, and that's been addressed in other videos that we've talked about too. We're definitely opposing sports teams, but I love her with all my heart, and she's absolutely fantastic. So do us a favor. Again, thank you for being a part of this, and this has been such a cool conversation to be a part of. So do us a favor and tell our audience a little bit more about how they can reach you, if they need your services, and if they want to ask you more questions or dive into more about what you do. How can they get a hold of you?
Alright, so first off, I have a website, www.tialin.com, TIIALIN.com. I also have a Facebook page. I'll give you guys the links for that, because not that it's hard, but it's a little less cumbersome to just put it on the screen. You can also reach me via email, tialin, so TIIALIN @icloud.com, or you can reach me on my cell. It's best to text me though, 801-989-0771.
Awesome. So if you guys are in need of graphic design services or content creation for things that you're doing on your social media pages, this is the gal. Hit her up. I've seen a lot of your work. I know that a lot of the folks that we network with mutually have utilized your services. You've even done a little bit of work for us, although not a lot, and that might change here very quickly now that we've had this conversation. But I do appreciate the work that you've done for us. She's absolutely tremendous, you guys. Seriously, give her a call, shoot her a text, send her an email, get a hold of her. She does fantastic work, and you can tell through the conversation she takes a lot of pride in what she does, and it's a project of passion for her. It's fair to say. So again, thank you guys for being a part of this. Do us a favor, if you got any kind of value out of this, will you hit the like button, comment below, tell us about what you learned and what you liked, any questions you guys might have, comment below, and then do us a favor and hit the share button so more people can get to know Tia. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys for being a part of it, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.